Hello and welcome back to Capital Repertory Theatre presents Rosie is Red and Everybody is Blue. Did I get the title right?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Great. So we're off to a good start. I want to thank you all so much for being here. Let's just go around the table quick and introduce everybody. Can we start with you, Maya?
Sure. I'm Maya Jackson. I play Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Inga Ballard, and I play Rosie.
Montae Russell, I play Lenny.
I'm Chris Blunt, and I play Chris.
Excellent. I had the pleasure of watching a recording of your final preview performance, and it was really so fun. I didn't know what to expect, obviously. Even from the top of the show to where we ended up, I did not see that trajectory being where it all brought us. I think I expected it to be more serious than it was, but man, it was funny. It was moving. There were heartbreaking moments. There were. It was really great. Montae, there's a moment where we think you die, and I was genuinely upset. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" That like all this time, like you grow to love Lenny so very much, and then that's how he goes out. And I was on your behalf. But it all worked out. You're doing much. You look like you're doing much better now. Right. Well, this will all come out after the show. So if they haven't seen it yet, you know what I find myself wanting to do is just talk about it, like remember when you did this? Remember when that happened? It's like, yeah, guy, we've been working on the show for a month. I understand. So the spirit of our show here is that we want to sort of put on the historical record the experiences that you all had with this show to talk about. We will have an archival recording of the performance, but we don't know how we got there. So can we start there? Inga, can I start with you in sort of how did you get to Capital Rep and opening night for Rosie?
Rosie, for me, started in June of 2023. Stephanie Clapper, our fabulous casting director, she sends her love to everybody, by the way. She called me and she says, there's this reading series that Cap Rep is doing. It's a one-day thing. You'll go up on the train early Saturday morning. You'll do the presentation. It's the first 15 pages of this new play series, and you'll spend the night. They'll put you up, and you'll come back on Sunday. And I was like, okay. So it was an easy, thing. Went in. I don't even think I got the script before. I don't remember now if I got the script before I got there. But anyway, we just read the first 15 pages of the script for this audience, and there were 3 other playwrights that were there, including John Spellos, who wrote Rosie, and they were presenting excerpts from their scripts as well. And John's script really resonated with the audience. I mean, it got all of these positive comments, and people were asked to fill out a kind of like a little survey form at the end to let Maggie know, what they liked about it, what they didn't like, and that sort of thing. And I think almost everybody said they wanted to see the whole play.
Yeah. And
so from that point, things kind of took off. John was in the film and TV industry, and then switched over into playwriting. And one of his mentors is Marsha Norman, the playwright, and he started this project with Rosie in a writing series, and he had to write, I believe it started out as writing a monologue, happened to be for one of the women in the writing series who happened to be a Black woman. Not that that has any reference or anything at all to in terms of the play, because there's no mention of color anywhere in the play. It just happens to be when you come to see the play, you see a Black family, but there's nothing in the script that references that. So anyway, he wrote the piece for the woman in his group, and again, it was a situation where he was told to develop it. And that was the jumping off point for Rosie. So after I did the reading, and they got all the positive feedback and everything, then I guess the wheels started turning with Maggie and Cap Rep, and they got it onto their season. And last year I was doing Sweat for Cap Rep, and John came to see the play, and he indicated that he wanted me to play Rosie, and I was very flattered, and I was interested. But these kinds of situations, I'm sure everybody at the table would agree, you never know what's going to happen until you get a contract.
Right.
And not even then, until you're at your first day of rehearsal, then maybe it's going to go forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you take it all with a grain of salt. And so anyway, it happened. I'm here with these wonderful actors. John has been great. Our great director, Reginald Douglas, who I've worked with also, has been fabulous. And I'm just blessed to be in a situation where I get to work with these wonderful people because they are truly so giving, so loving, so supportive, and they really elevate everything every night that we're on stage. So
that was so very clear from watching the performance. It really is. And might I say, you were fantastic in Sweat as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Montae, can we talk to you? What was your experience coming to this show, working on this show?
Well, I got a call from my agent and said that Reg inquired about my availability for the role, or so that's a different kind of call. When your agent calls you, you have an audition tomorrow or the next day, but when you know that the director is asking about your availability, that's a little more interest already.
Right.
So right there, I knew that I had to extra prepare.
Right.
And which I only had one day.
Oh.
I stayed up all night, read it, cracked up, laughed, got up early again to prepare because it was going to be for a Zoom audition. So that's a different type of experience altogether as well, because you're talking to the person in a little box and you see the people back there. You don't know who you're waving at people, and but then you got locked back into the reader, and I had a good angle with my computer, and we just bounced off of each other. Reg gave me a few adjustments. I felt okay about the adjustments, and but I thought I was still being considered, and that's what happened. I got the offer the next day, and here I am.
That's great. So obviously you've worked with Reg before.
No, we
Really?
we have seen each other's work.
Oh, okay. Oh,
we
great.
know of each other, but we have never worked together. But
That must have been doubly
obviously,
exciting.
Yeah.
So,
So
well, that's great.
yeah.
Also, you we already talked about it. I'm so glad you're alive.
So am I.
That's not a compliment.
That is the best kind of compliment. I hoped you were dead.
Maya, can I get Maya, what was your path to Rosie?
More traditional, I guess, than Inga. The Inga and Montae's, where I just got a submission to audition through my agent, and prepared. Was really excited because I have never worked with Reg before, but I met him many years ago through another show that I was doing. He happened to be friends with the writer of this play that I'd done at the Kennedy Center, and I'd just been a fan of him from afar and never got the opportunity to actually audition, or would see him doing something and being like, wish I could submit. And it's funny because Reg is the artistic director of Mosaic Theater in DC. I am originally from DC. That is my original theater town, but I was never able to work with him when he was doing projects in the area. And so it just felt really special to be able to work with this person or have the opportunity to audition for someone, even though we're both finding ourselves in New York. But I went in for my first audition. The vibes were really high in the room. Came back in for my callback, and it just felt like kismet. The room felt really warm. I've really grown to, I've had really warm audition experiences with the people from Capital Rep. And so it was one of those things where, I always kind of know that I'm going to enjoy being in that room, regardless of what happens. And it just turned out that in addition to having a positive audition experience, I got the role, and I was like, oh, great, because you'll have, I think everyone can attest, you'll have great audition experiences, and you'll kiki in the room, and you'll be like, I think I got it. And then you'll just hear crickets. And so it sometimes just feels like icing on the cake when you actually book the role. You just want to book the room.
Sure.
But yeah, it was definitely felt like it was just time to work with Reg. I'm so excited. I was so happy that I got this opportunity to finally connect with him, and everyone has, or Inga has echoed, with this group of people, it feels really right.
Yeah.
So.
Chris, what? Tell us your experience coming to Rosie.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Like our fellow actors right here, I knew Reg a little while, so this is a testament to, I guess, you never know who you're going to meet and when you're going to work with them, as far as it's always important to treat people well. I mean, you always are supposed to treat people well, but that's the world we live in. But you never know where this person's going to be later on. But I knew Reg about 6 years ago. back in college, I auditioned for him. He was directing a show at my school at Point Park University. Shout out Bison Pioneers. and then I didn't get that one, but I saw another show that he did. One night in Miami, he did in Pittsburgh, and then I just was like, oh, I guess I'm never gonna work with Reg. And then I moved. Life did me, and then life did him as well. And then we eventually came, and I got an email from my manager and was like, Reg wants to see you, or it was like an email from Stephanie or Reg, and they were like, they want to see you in the room if you would come audition. And I was like, oh, I know Reg. I wonder if he remembers me. And I went. And it really went well. The vibes in the room, like you said, Maya, it was tremendous. It was a good rapport. I felt like I did a really great audition, and then I had a call back the next day or the day after, and then we were off to the races. And we were making this wonderful show.
First of all, we're beyond lucky to have this combination of people doing this show. I had that experience as I'm watching the show that I forgot that I was watching a show, which is obviously what you want, right? I mean, every time, poor Lenny comes out and starts to get into it with Rosie, I was just like, man, why not stop it? Why do you, this never works out for you, Lenny, stop. So once you all, you were all cast, we brought you all together. Can you talk to us a little bit about what was the rehearsal experience like for you?
Lots of tape.
The rehearsal experience started out pretty traditionally. I mean, we had the table read.
Yeah.
You get to meet everybody, including your designers and everybody that's running the theater. And then we sat down and we had a table read where we just read the play out loud with the writer and John and Reg, our director. And we're able to ask questions. But we spent, I think, 3 days of
It felt like 5. It felt like 5.
It was 3.
It was 3 days of table reading, and then we started to get up, and Reg started to stage some things. But the table read is really important because you get to hear the voices of the characters from the actors that are playing the roles, and you get to ask questions. And I know for me, I had read it a couple times before, and reading it, it's a fairly easy read. You kind of breeze right through it. But once you are in it and learning it, it's a little deceptive. It's just the way John writes, in terms of he may be saying one thing, and then you may have to make a leap of faith to get to your next point. So that can be the challenge. At least it was for me, and it is for me. It's an ongoing process because even though we are up and running, the show changes every single night because we have a different audience.
Right.
So it's a living, breathing thing. And we are living, breathing human beings on stage. And so that's going to adjust with every performance. But that's essentially was the beginning of the process for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I recall as I was reading through the script, there were there's a lot of exasperation, right? There's a lot of moments where and you all have these moments where there's some version of like, oh my God, or what are you thinking? And they're not throwaway lines, but they're not, they're sort of rhetorical, right? They're just things that you're saying to yourself. But there were so many of them, and they are so frequent. And I was as I'm going through them thinking I could never remember the order of I would just end up with stop it every time. Like I would just go to like the go-to one that would be in my head. How does the dynamic between you all personally, does that come out on stage at all? I mean, is the relationship that you have off stage, does that inform what happens on stage?
I think what's really deceptive about this group of people is that this play is it's joyful, it's playful, and it's silly, but the work ethic, I'm looking specifically at these two people, Montae and Inga, of this group is anything but, I feel like everyone's been, because of the nature of the show, because it's so fast, and there are a lot of quick pivots in thought and a lot of repetitive kind of, repetitive kind of words, or moments of, like you said, exasperation. We have to really lock in, we have to drill, we're always, all of us backstage kind of like going over our lines, because it can feel like the precision of, or the mental acuity you need to do some of this work can feel kind of like you're at the bar, you know, like you're like a ballerina and you're going over your like point work or whatever they refer to it as. But I think that's the interesting thing when you ask that question. Like, I think we've had to do a lot of really disciplined work in our own ways and together to be able to kind of let go as much as we can on stage.
Yeah.
So when you ask about the dynamic, you know, like I'd say this rehearsal process has been really traditional, but it's also been one where like I've been really inspired, like I said, by like the discipline, by like how everyone just comes in like ready to like tackle it and to do what they can to really focus on moving the ball forward and moving themselves forward, but also moving the group forward. Like the energy has been so efficient. And it's just this stark contrast, because you think we'd be like cutting up and stuff, but no, we've been focused.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
True.
Everyone's been really, really focused.
Yeah.
Let me. I would say from me, from day one, this has been extremely challenging. Even though it's a light play, it's a sitcom-y kind of play,
Yeah.
but it's still heavy and a lot of work. And I was extremely challenged by it, the language, and also the nature of the relationships. These are not the dynamics of this play, who this family is. You don't see this kind of thing every day, and so you had to quickly, but not too quickly, establish who these people were in each other's lives. Me being his uncle, and we didn't know each other. That's another thing. So we have to click in, find something to click into becoming the brother-in-law, the uncle, my favorite waitress kind of thing. These are not standard kind of relationships. So a lot of that had to sink in. And a lot of nights I went home very worried. I was like, oh my God, I suck. This is gonna suck.
For sure.
You know, but I've always felt like every show that I'm in is gonna suck. I've never been in a show that sucked.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a place where it feels very, very, oh my God, you know, this is, you stay up half of the night. Did I stay up too long to do the work? I'm tired during the day, you know? So, and then the fact that we had like 3 days off in the middle of the first week.
Yeah.
And then have to be off book like almost the next weekend. You know, it's like it could play with your head. If you will,
Of course.
You know? But then you have to just rely on your work and hope that it shows up. That's a phrase I always use. I put in a lot of work, so I just hope that it shows up tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you know, and then at some point, you know, it gave you headaches, it made your brain tight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
Then it started unwinding and relaxing. Then you fall into it, and then you say, "Oh, now I got it. Now it's not as much work now. You put in the work. Now just live it."
Yeah.
So that's what the experience was for me.
Yeah.
And I going off of what they both said, it was an interesting process. Like this script is like 102 pages, and most plays are like 75 or so. So there was already more, but at the same time, the runtime is shorter than most plays. So it really flies, but also at the same time, there's a lot of things. It was like Maya says, a lot of technicalities as far as cutoffs, and you have to be on it, you know, and Reg was specific about on it and the mood and tone that we're playing as versus, so there's a lot of intricacies about playing a comedy, as there is drama, but you don't want to weigh it down too much, you know. It's about finding the buoyancy. As far as like a rom-com, you don't want to make it too dramatic, or it throws off the buoyancy of the show. And so finding tone and remembering all the lines and showing up and rehearsing, oh Lord, every day, you know, it's hard. It was hard, but so we were all very professional, like everyone said. But as far as the chemistry coming along, I think everyone is such great actors and so kind people, you know. So already great actors already have the instinct of supporting and giving to others, and they're already kind people in general. So it made it much easier. So when the rapport needed to come, it was easy to love on people who are so lovable and willing to give and to support you. And so it's easy to jump when you know you have people waiting to catch you. So
I love that. Yeah.
And also too, I'm just going to add,
please.
Just the way John wrote his play, he has long scenes in the play.
Yeah.
A lot of times you read a play, whether it's a drama or a comedy, you may have a bunch of scenes, but they're fairly short. You know, you might have 5-6 scenes in the first act, but they're short scenes. He's got 3 scenes in the first act, the third scene being the longest, and then 2 in the second act plus the epilogue.
Yeah.
You know, but they're long scenes, and a lot happens in those scenes. And then also in terms of regional theater, you don't have the luxury of rehearsal time. You have a very limited rehearsal schedule because of the fact, you know, for budgetary concerns, you know, you've got to get the play up on its feet. You may only have a 2 or 3 day tech process, whereas if you're working in New York, you know, on a Broadway contract, you know, you may get a 4 or 5 week rehearsal period. You may have a 2-week tech session to tech your play or musical, whatever it may be. You don't have that luxury on the regional level. So it's kind of like you're being shot out of a cannon in a lot of ways. But that's just the nature of the beast. And you know, it's great, but it's also nerve-wracking too on top of that. And then you're dealing with a new play. So that's the other part of it, something that's never been produced before. So you have the luxury of having the writer in the room with you, which is a great thing, but still it's a new play. And so you're trying to figure out, how do we develop these characters? How do we establish these relationships and make it real? And Reg, our director, was really adamant about making sure that everything we did, we led from the point of love. You know, these people love each other. Even though Vanessa is new to the group, once Rosie figures out who she is, there's a great love for her.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
And that makes all the difference in the world when you're performing it.
Right. All right, so I have 2 questions that one would segue very nicely, so I'll do the other one. Chris spoke about the rhythm and the pace of the show, and you spoke about the pace of rehearsal. And in my recollection of it, there is not a moment, except for one that I can recall, where the show really just stops and everybody just waits for a second. And the only moment I could think of is at the top of the show, where where Rosie's just spoken with Chris, and off he goes, and you have you're outwardly emotional, which is really the only time that Rosie is outwardly emotional in that way. And that was a moment where it just felt like the show just paused for a minute and just luxuriated in that moment. And then it was just nonstop. I mean, even when Rosie comes in the second act and she's moving so much slower, everyone around you is sort of frenetic. Was that a purposeful choice? Did that happen naturally in the course of the show, where there's just this energy of constant motion?
I think they can answer that, because for me, it's the pace for me is very easy, very, you know, I just need to get to my chair. Right. And I'm there. Everybody else is rotating around me, so that question probably should be answered by them. Yeah.
We can also absolutely skip this question and cut it. No, Chris, go ahead.
I was going to say, Reg is very, very particular about how he wanted it to go, as far as having certain moments of letting certain things breathe, but at the same time, comedy isn't funny dragged out a lot of the time. And so for some things to be funny, it has to be at a pace, you know, and that's a funny word to always come back to for me, as far as there has to be a pace going. Like at a certain time, we got to keep a certain rhythm going for music to sound right, you know, but for this music, I think it has to be at a certain pace to get a lot of the jokes. A lot of things have to overlap. A lot of things have to keep going. And I think that's what we were shooting for. But the moments that we could actually sink into, as far as the emotional moments, it makes it really have a payoff. As far as when Rosie does have her time after with me, or when we're like, stop, listen, this is Vanessa, and there's moments like that, or when y'all have y'all's moments together where y'all are like, I mean, y'all do it every night, but it's like, like you can trust me, and things like, in important moments, Reg always wants to bake in of having weight, but if you give everything weight, then nothing has weight, you know? So you have to build up to those important moments. So to make those moments stand out, you have to make the other moments do what they have to do.
Well, and I'm going to find 1,000 ways to compliment you all, but one of the things that I just sort of realized as you were talking, Chris, is that when those moments happen, you know, like even the way you just said stop, right? I mean, like I can hear you saying that to Rosie, right? And I remember that the emotional, you know, the emotion that I experienced when I kind of went, oh no, he's not messing around. Like this is like, you know, he's really trying to draw a line in the sand. When Lenny at the end of the show, you know, reveals that he's helped Rosie in the way that he has, you know, it was this moment of like, I was emotionally invested because of the work that you have also clearly done. When you two have that moment of realizing who she is and you hug, I was just so happy. It was just so great. I was like, oh, this is wonderful. So it really, it is wonderful. There's no better word.
I think also to the question you were asking about like pace, you know, when I think about my life as a person operating without I don't have a husband or children, I think there are days, weeks where I can have like quiet. But I think the moment you start adding people into your dynamic, you rarely get a life without busyness, right? And so, you know, to that question of like, it's so friendly, I'm like, but yeah, that's kind of life, you know, like where you just don't know what's coming next. And particularly as someone who's dealt with like elder care and family with illness, and you know, like it is definitely that moment of like you wanna relax, you wanna be easy, but like you never know when something's gonna pop up, and there is the anxiety, the angst, the tension of like, I have to make sure that I have the net out, so if anyone falls, I'm catching it. And I think that's kind of one of the underlying rhythms of the play is like people wanting to catch each other. And honestly, I think that mirrors a lot of the work we're doing on stage, is that because there's this like quickness to what we're doing, if anything happens, we are always, I think, really vigilant for one another to be like, okay, I'm gonna catch you, right? Because the show is evolving, you know, and because we are starting to like trust ourselves and let things fly, it is this kind of work of like making sure that I am just always ready to pivot. And I think that's also somehow reflected thematically in what's happening in the play, is just these constant changes. And I do think also, like, I know there's a world of writing, I know there's a world of drama where you can be like in naturalism, but usually what we're dramatizing are the dramatic moments of life, right? There's the play happens over the course of time, so there might be time in these people's lives where they ain't doing nothing, we're all sitting around drinking coffee. That's not what we see on stage.
That's right. Guys, that's not as compelling live theater. Right. All right, so I'll get back to my poor segue from earlier. So this is a world premiere, right? So this has never been staged before. There's been readings. Do you have any latitude in terms of changes, of tweaks, of suggestions to John? And I ask because, again, as the copy of the script that I was following along was almost exactly right, except in the version I was reading, Act 1 ends a scene earlier. There's another scene. I think two scenes sort of blend together, and there's just sort of a very brief sort of connecting moment between those two things. So clearly the script has evolved since John, you know, printed out that copy to what you have. Did that happen in the rehearsal room? Did it happen over the course of time? How were those evolutions happening?
There were some changes that happened in the rehearsal room, and then our director, Reg, you know, he worked closely with John in terms of tweaking, you know, some sentences and things. But I think moving forward, hopefully, you know, if the play gets published and if it moves forward to other theaters, there'll be a dramaturg along with the production that will help to just tweak certain areas that need to be tweaked. But for the most part, in our production, things happened in the room while we were there at the table, or we'd get the note and then we get new pages the next day.
Sure. And
then we'd add them in. And they weren't like big changes. They were a sentence was changed, or some sentences were added for Lenny in certain scenes. You know, those kinds of changes were made. It wasn't anything that was, you know, huge changes.
Oh, right.
It wasn't anything like that.
Sure.
The process was really collaborative.
Yes.
It was very much so.
Like, at no point did I feel like, I don't know if this is the right word or if this is a challenging word to use, but like a play that someone has written and spent time on is precious, but I didn't feel like it was so precious that we couldn't offer things.
Right.
It felt
Yes.
like John was really
Right.
porous in terms of
He
being
was
open.
very
He was
open and receptive.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Always.
and that was a really fun, really useful
Yeah.
energy to work with, because it didn't feel like I was like stepping on toes.
Right.
But it also felt like, okay, like there's something to respect here, but it's not so rigid that I couldn't be like, hey, question,
Right.
you know? And that was a great energy.
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah.
It was really cool having John in the space, and John is such a, like you said, great collaborator in the sense that he trusted Reg so surely. I was talking to John once, and he was just like, "Yeah, I trust y'all. I trust Reg, and whatever y'all's input is gonna make it more real, more human." And he had such a good relationship to Reg, and anytime that anything didn't sound normal or in our body, he was like, "For sure, whatever you feel like is gonna make this better." You know, he was always in the sense of whatever can make this better. You know, and so he took our input and was really willing to allow it to go, and the things that he felt like should stay, we would just have a conversation, but we would always come to a great understanding of how we wanted it to be.
Right. Inga, you alluded to this earlier. Nowhere in the script does it say this is a black family, a white family, and anything family. It is just a family. I was, if I'm very honest, I was surprised to learn that John was white. And I had a moment where I went, that was brave to write like and then I realized, he actually didn't write a black family, or he didn't write any, there was no color to the family. It was just, the idea of this family being just a family on the page. I mean, was that a conversation that you all had in the rehearsal process, or was it just, this is just the family?
Yep. Well, I mean, because though yes, it's not black per se, but there are still things that happen in black families that happen in this play. I mean, living with people, taking care of your family, looking out for your nephew, relying on your uncle, matchmaking, and back and forth. So, so that allowed me to step into it. You know what I mean, and bring my humanity / blackness, if you will, without it clashing. In my opinion, it wasn't something that was foreign from my understanding.
Right.
So that was my entry into it in terms of that kind of thing.
Sure.
And John is Greek, and he has talked about this a lot in terms of growing up in a Greek family, and how this play is sort of, it represents not so much how he grew up, and just in terms of families living together, taking care of one another, bringing in somebody new to the family, all of that, all of those sort of things. And then also, too, I have friends that are caring or have children that have moved back home, adult children. Some of the adult children have children, and they found their ways back home, and they're living in their childhood room, for whatever reason, because maybe they lost a job or they're struggling for whatever reason. But these things happen, and if you can't depend on your family, if you don't have that support from your family members, if you can't go to that group of people that knew you when, that raised you, and seek the assistance that you need, then what else do you have?
Yeah.
And I think that our play represents that in so many ways. And the beauty of it is, because on the page there is no color, but like Montae was saying, I'm referring to Lenny, the character in the play, but Montae is the actor. But like he was saying, there are things that, you think, my family is like that. My family, I remember, blah, 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 blah. We did this. You can relate to it. Everybody can relate to it. If you grew up in a family, or whether one you were born into or one that you created around you, there are instances in this play that you can relate to.
Yeah, it was very revelatory to me to think back on what I watched and realize that, because I had the same experience. I mean, I was watching it, the outsider coming into the family. Like, I mean, I've experienced that feeling, certainly not in the same way, but those are universal realities of everyone's life. And I was sort of thinking back on all of the ways that it was, the similarities that I could find, and the commonalities that I could find, and then realizing that race has nothing to do with any of this. Certainly, it informs, as you were saying, Montae, but it can be. It's not a requirement in this. I mean, now I'm curious to see this as with a different ethnicity of family, and I wonder how it would feel, how it would evolve, how it would change. But that's just me, and we're not here to talk about me. All right, so I have one more round of questions for you in the spirit of this show, where we are trying to put on the record what happened during Rosie, how we got to Rosie, the thing we see on stage, how did we get there? What is the moment, or what's the thing from this whole process that really stands out to you? When you 20 years from now, when you think back on this show, what's the moment you're going to remember, or the big takeaway from your experience doing this show? I know.
For me, I know. One of those previews, I think I said to the folks, I said, we have a show, because, like I said, we worked hard. We didn't know, we knew we had a show. We're doing a show, but we didn't know we had a show. Like, yo, guys, we got it.
Yeah.
Now we can just enjoy it, and, it's all paid off. So that was just last week, but it hit me. Despite people were like, "Oh, I'm sorry for dropping that line," or "I was a little late on that," and don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
That was me.
A couple of times. Joke.
Okay.
And I was doing the same.
Right.
Ain't my fault. Or I would,
100%.
zone out. There's
Sure.
periods where I'm not talking. It's easy to just start thinking about the Knicks or something like that.
Right? Yeah. I had no idea you were a fan.
Oh, die hard.
Yeah.
But in spite of all that, it hit me backstage, like maybe that Friday night or something. But I was like, "Yo, God, we have a show."
Yeah.
And because you could tell, just tell.
Right.
We're all clicking.
That's great.
We're in it,
Yeah.
bouncing off each other.
When the audience is laughing, with you, and they're breathing with you, and they're so into what's happening on stage, and they're understanding it, and they're relating to it. You can see it in their faces, and you feel that energy. So I remember that night that Montae is speaking of.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of our first audiences because the crew had been there, our creatives had been there, and they had been laughing, occasionally, but at one point they stopped. They were just like,
They're tired of it. They're tired of it.
Yes, you guys are great, but we've seen this.
Yeah.
So
we see that punchline coming.
When we got new people in there, and I think it was your house managers and ushers and things like that, and you heard them laughing, and it was like, oh yeah. So yeah, he hit the nail on the head. So that was a good night, because the realization was there.
Yeah. Were there any moments that when you got the quote unquote real audiences in there, any moments of laughter or reaction that you weren't expecting?
For me, I didn't expect. Well, Ray, my deceased husband. He's in the urn.
Yeah.
And the first time people laughed when I bring the urn down to the table, I never expected that. And now it's like this big thing. I mean, they just, and I guess it is funny,
Yeah.
Come and see the show, folks. I'm not
No, 100%.
It's
one of the
tell
it is funny. I
biggest
promise. I've
moment.
seen it. It's funny.
But I just didn't expect that, So that was surprising to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First big reveal.
Big, yeah.
What about other moments? Other moments that are going to stand out to you?
I think as far as looking back on it eventually in the future, being like, wow, this is what I really took away from the show. I really think it was during the rehearsal process. There was one moment where I don't know if it was just a breaking point or what, where it just came to a point where I was like, listen, I don't know if this is good. I said, I don't know if I'm good right now. I don't know if what I'm doing is making sense. You're really making this gumbo. You're one band trying to make one sound, where all these different instruments. We don't know the music. We've never heard anyone play this music before. And so I was like, yo, I don't know if my trumpet is sounding right. I don't know if this is good. I think this is, I don't know. But it really teaches to trust the process. Trust that this is like you're creating something. This is like a birthing process. So there's going to be pains. There's going to be aches. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who this baby's going to be. And then you're gonna forget about all the hurt when you have the baby now, and you're just overjoyed, and now you're just here, and you're just we're now having these interviews. We didn't know how it was gonna work or what was gonna happen, but we have this lovely baby now. We want everybody to come see it, But that's really what I'm trusting now, is trusting that though you may not see the light at the end of the tunnel, though God's gonna bring you out. You're gonna be good, and it's gonna be, just trust the process,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anybody else, Maya?
You're asking. We just opened, so.
But like the whole process,
I feel like we're kind of still in the middle. That's kind of why I was like slow to answer, because I was like, I don't know, I haven't been through it all yet.
Right.
There's and for me, I guess a lot of the moments that I might remember, they're kind of, I don't know, jewelry box moments. They're small.
Yeah.
They're not like these big aha moments. They're like, this is gonna make Inga's gonna be so mad at me, but like,
no.
No, but you mentioned that, like, something that stands out to you is like when I hug her in the play, and it's because I actually really love hugging Inga.
It did look like a pretty great hug, I gotta say.
I really, really love hugging Inga, so that's something that I will that I cherish doing, and that once the show is over, I will cherish the memory of getting to hug Inga, because I don't know if you know this, but this woman smells amazing.
Okay, all right.
And like something that I hope I'm also not putting Montae on blast, but something I kind of tease him about is like, Montae is so sly. Like, he's done all of this really structured work, but then also like plays within the structure.
Yeah.
And so he'll surprise you in little ways, and he'd be throwing me these little looks, these like very conspiratorial, just mischievous looks, and it has me authentically laugh on stage every night.
But it's not mischievous. I'm not being sly.
No,
it's all in the work. It's all in the work.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's all within the world of the play. It's all within the world of Lenny.
Yeah.
But it's growing and it's living. And so I'm receiving it. And like, I'll say one of the things that I love the most is we used to have when there's a moment in the play where I sit down on the couch and I invite Lenny to sit closer to me so that we can kiki or whatever. And we used to kind of do this little hop. We used to kind of like bounce on the couch together. And one day, Montae, instead of doing this little hop, he slid. And I was just chuffed to bits.
Yeah.
I was like, it was such a delightful discovery. And I continue to have these like small delightful discoveries with like my fellow actors on stage, and it just makes the experience really rich and alive, and I appreciate like that it's still evolving, while also staying, very disciplined, So I'm sure there'll be something else once we finish the run, but right now there's like these small moments of like lived connection that I'll definitely carry with me afterwards.
I think it's beautiful. Thank you.
It's like last night I was saying, Montae made me laugh last night at the end of Act 1, Scene 2, because it was like the character is in on the joke, but my slow pickup, I just picked it up last night and I started to laugh. And I was laughing as I was exiting, and I thought, okay, wait, should I be laughing or should I not be laughing? And I thought, well, why not? You know? And it worked. For me, it worked. And I thought that was so great. I thought that was a gift. Okay.
See, Montae's gotten both of us. Your time is coming.
Yeah, but I'm not doing it on purpose. That's the thing.
That's the beauty.
Yeah, because when you use words like mischief and sly, that sounds like a motive. There's no motive. To me, it's just being truthful in the moment. That's all I'm doing is listening and responding. That's all.
I don't mean mischievous as Montae. I mean mischievous as Lenny.
Either way.
Either way, for sure.
Listen, I am chuffed to bits, frankly, for having spent this time with you folks. Again, I am honored to be even tangentially related to this production. I get to see it live tonight. As I said, I did see it, so it wasn't like I was just making all that up. I'm really excited for the performance, and I'm really excited for the rest of your run. Thank you so much for taking the time, guys. You guys are great. It's a great show. Everybody should see it. It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We did it, guys.
Chuffed to bits.
Chuffed to bits.
Just chuffed.
Capital Repertory Theatre presents Rosie is Red and Everybody is Blue. Our podcast is hosted by Michael McCord. It is produced by Michael McCord, Collaborative Studios, and Proctor's Collaborative. It is recorded at Open Stage Media Studios. It is distributed by Proctor's Collaborative. Rosie is Red and Everybody is Blue is written by John Spellos and directed by Reginald Douglas, a member of the Stage Directors and Choreographers Society. It stars Inga Ballard, Chris Blunt, Maya Jackson, and Montae Russell, all of whom are members of Actors Equity Association. The production team includes set design by Alexander Woodward, lighting design by Travis McHale, and costume design by Karen Perry, all of whom are members of United Scenic Artists Local USA 829. Sound design by David Lamont Wilson, casting director Stephanie Clapper CSA, production stage management by Shane David Camaris, a member of Actors Equity Association, assistant stage management by Michaela Savoy, and wig styling by Venus Moultrie. Rosie is Red and Everybody is Blue is sponsored by Best Cleaners. The 2024-2025 season sponsor for Capital Repertory Theatre is Over It. The producing artistic director of Capital Repertory Theatre is Maggie Mancinelli Cahill. The president of Proctor's Collaborative is Jean Leonard. The CEO of Proctor's Collaborative is Philip Morris. You can contact us at collaborativestudios@proctors.org.